I hereby call to order the special meeting of the Board of Trustees of the East Central Independent School District being held on August 27, 2024 at the beginning at 5:30 p.m. to order. Madam Secretary, may I please have a roll call?
Yes, ma'am, madam.
I'm sorry, August 27th, 2024. My apologies. Go ahead.
Ginger Friesenhunt.
Here.
Victor Garza.
Here.
John Metzinger. James Monkey. Joe Brazil is here. Emilia Carrasco.
I'm here.
Monique Braces.
Here. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Next item is the prayer and the pledge.
Response.
Please bow your head for the prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we come before you thanking you for this day. We thank you for your presence here in the midst of this meeting. We thank you for protecting our students, staff, and the community in ECISD. We ask that you give us wisdom and knowledge today as we make decisions. And all these things we thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
You can stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Yes.
I was taking a cue from you. I figured. All right, the next item on the agenda is item 4, public comments, and I do believe we have a Miss Beth Jones, and she'd like to speak about agenda item, the number is number 5, bond. Ms. Jones, hi, welcome.
Hi.
I just have a couple of things to read to you right quick before we start.
All right.
Okay, and so when addressing the presiding officer during the public forum, speaker's commentary must adhere to the following. Because this is a special meeting, only items on the agenda may be addressed in public comments. Any comments not connected to an agenda item will not be heard. All comments shall be addressed to the presiding officer. Speakers may not give their allotted time to someone else. Individuals needing a translator will be granted twice the amount of time allotted to English speakers. Everyone must model courtesy and respect. Speakers shall not employ, profane, or use threatening language, nor shall they engage in any personal attacks. The expectation is that the message delivered by the speaker is done so in a constructive manner with a collaborative purposes. Speakers are expected to respect both the decorum of the public meeting and the authority of the board. The Board of Trustees requests that derogatory or inflammatory statements and personal attacks on individuals be avoided. Caution should be exercised in publicly attacking specific individuals. This is not the forum for specific parent, student, or employee complaints. Such complaints should be handled through the appropriate board policy. Please contact the personnel office for information regarding filing your complaint. If you are unable to resolve your complaint through the grievance procedure, the board may hear it at a level 3. Employee complaints, board policy DGBA. Student or parent complaints, board policy FNG. Public complaints, board policy GF. If the comment is regarding a specific employee who is listed on the agenda, the comment must be allowed. Speakers who have signed up to speak on a specific agenda item must focus on their own comments on the posted item, agenda item. So sorry you had to listen to all that, but thank you for being here. It's just a matter of procedure, so welcome. Good evening.
Forgot what it was.
Oh, yes, in 5 minutes.
Oh, okay, well, thank you so much.
Of course.
Good evening, members of the board, President Prestos, and Superintendent Toscano. Appreciate the time to speak this evening. I am going to speak about the bond. I'm a big supporter of public education and bonds.
Hit the ball right-handed and forever. He's 10 years old. And we're gonna have coaches, parents play at the end of the season. And I'm going right-handed. Natural. Go forward a little bit. My brother comes along. Now he's 20 years old. We go to the driving range at Bragg, hitting the golf ball, and I'm doing okay. And they're going from here to the wall. He and his buddy. I said, look, I put golf club, right-hand golf club, do this, address the ball, and hit a nice drive. Naturally. So I showed his buddy the same thing. He said, okay. Then he said, oh, wait a minute. You just hit 2 balls right-handed. I said, see, it's easy. The whole point I'm trying to make is, I've always been about the kids. Without even thinking about it, I've been about the kids. My sister had, when I was 11 years old, she had a child. And I went to deal with that little girl. And I became her babysitter. And she would have parties, I would take care of the child. And I would say, it's always been about the kids. And I've never been concerned about whether they got my clothes dirty when I would pick them up and they would burp all over me. It never bothered me. And throughout my life, it's been about kids. And I have a neighbor. Little boy was about 4 years old. My neighbor lost his dad. So he kind of gravitated to me, started kind of looking at me as a replacement for his dad. But the little boy comes over, and the man says, go to Grandpa Vic. So he started calling me Grandpa Vic. The boy would come over and play with me. Then he had a little girl, Grandpa Vic. And it's a natural thing. They gravitate to me. When my daughter was born, I was playing golf, whatever I could. I was hacking. She came along, I put the golf clubs down. You're her age. I haven't picked up the golf clubs since, because my time was for her. When her sister came, I had those two to tend to. Then her brother came. My golf clubs are going to explode if I ever swing them again. I haven't used them because my time has been for my kids.
That's a good story. Well, I want to ask you, if
That's
you
what it's
have
about.
well, I'm gonna ask you on the end of this, you could have been a millionaire if you would have been whittling those tops and selling them as long as that one has lasted.
And that's what it's been about.
That's
That's what
amazing.
it's been
That's
about, the
amazing.
kids.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Very
sharing
cool.
that.
I went to Phoenix over here off of
You don't make them like that, I bet.
And I was talking to the lady, somehow we got them talking about doing stuff for my kids. The lady says, what about me time for you? I said,
What is
it's
that?
there. That's my me time.
That's it.
Right.
I don't need to go fishing. I don't need to go hunting. That's my me time.
That's right.
And I don't miss private time. I said, it's right there.
That's it.
That's right.
Well, thank you, everybody, for doing your homework and sharing something important in your life. Really hearing these stories about yourselves really helps others to get to know you a little bit more. I mean, at board meetings, it's a little rush. We have business to tend to. Sometimes we get caught up in life and really don't get to talk and say, hey, Ginger, how are you today? So it's just a moment to reflect on who we are as a person, right? Because behind all the decisions we make are human beings doing what we can to make the best decisions for our kids. And so all of you illustrated that with your commitment and with your artifact without even knowing, right? So that is really nice. As we move forward with team building, I just want to reflect a little bit about what it means to be a functional team, right? The Board of Trustees is the governing body for Texas public schools. To effectively meet the challenges of public education, school boards and superintendents must function together as a governance leadership team. And that's why it is required to have team building once a year. It is mandated to have this just to reflect and share. So we're going to move on to board roles and responsibilities. And I know that all of you are very aware of it, but it's nice to refresh and just make sure we're all on the same page. So we're going to talk a little bit about the role of the board, right? And the things that we are responsible for. So we have responsible school governance that we are in charge of. What does that mean, responsible school governance? Who can tell me what that means?
You have to answer.
Anybody can answer. have leadership TASB people
I
here.
know.
I have TASB board of directors here. I know y'all are experts.
There you go.
Pressure.
Okay, Director.
Responsible school governance means being responsible for setting the budget.
In a nutshell,
meetings.
we're responsible for the governance part of the role.
Yes,
The
that governance, right? That team of 8. You are responsible for making sure that you work together to do right by kids, right? And you need to work together. You don't have to agree with each other, but you need to work together to move forward. The next thing we're responsible for is high expectations. Making sure that we set high expectations, not only for our students and for our staff, but for ourselves. And sometimes we might overlook that, right? Because, well, it's high expectations for the kids and our staff, but also for ourselves and our behavior and how we lead and govern. We also have the responsibility to set up the conditions for success for our district. What does that mean? Conditions for success. What do you think that means?
That the board be a team and that they work well with their superintendent and the rest of the admin. That we get along and we're able to discuss and really be a team.
Sure, working as a team and also think about goal setting. When you set goals, if those are your priorities for your district, then you're gonna prioritize that, right? You are going to invest in those goals and those are your values. So if you try to set up those conditions for success, because your superintendent success is your district success, which is your student success, right? So making sure that you set up those conditions for success and support the process, right? So then we also have district accountability. We are responsible for progress monitoring what is happening in our district. We need to be aware of what is happening in our district and make sure you have a calendar of events you are monitoring and you're not blindsided at the end. So it is our responsibility to make sure to monitor that. And you have that training with improving student outcomes that's required to have it every 2 years, that 3-hour training. Because we have a huge responsibility in the accountability piece. And community engagement, making sure that we engage our community. Because it's not just about engaging them when there's a bond or an election, but throughout the year, throughout everything, making sure we receive their feedback. It's a two-way street there, not just giving them information, but also taking in information and making modifications to make your district better. What are some systems that are maybe not working? That's something that your superintendent and team would work on, right? Once you get that feedback. But as board members, it is our responsibility to make sure to be responsive to community members. Doesn't mean you solve their problems. There's a chain of command, but we need to be responsive and help them navigate the system. Because it is very difficult to navigate the system when you don't know. This is your first kid in school. It's very hard to navigate that system. So helping them navigate and pointing them to the right direction is very important. Okay, the framework for school board development, I'm just gonna give you a quick overview of it, and I'm gonna pass out this little book for you to do some homework with, right? Because I know y'all like to read.
She does get
And this is fun to reflect. It's fun for me. I love it. It's fun to reflect on it, on framework for school board development that was adopted in 2020. And it covers, again, what our responsibilities are as trustees. Vision and goals. Making sure that the board ensures creation of a shared vision and locally developed measurable goals that improve student outcomes and provide support for opportunities and experiences. So at your leisure, I'm gonna borrow this real quick. At your leisure, this is some reading, And this really does take a 3-hour session alone on doing this. What I like to do is read through each section, and I tell my board members, okay, pick one thing that you are doing so great in your district. And pick something that you can work on and improve on. And it's really interesting to see what the board members pick. So once you do that little homework, having a debrief about it, it's really helpful because that will help you towards your goal setting. So I usually do this in conjunction with goal setting because it really does speak volumes when you go through each section of it. So I'll have you do that at your leisure because it's a little bit lengthy of a read. The second thing that we are responsible for is systems and processes, right? The board ensures systems and processes are in place to accomplish the vision and goals. Progress and accountability, again, we're progress monitoring. The board sets clear goals, provides resources and support, evaluates goal attainment, and engages in ongoing objective feedback on progress and commitments. We're not hitting where we need to hit. Our trajectory does not look like it's in the right direction. What can we do? What conditions can we set up to make sure that we do track the way we need to? Do we need another outreach coordinator? Do we need to invest more on a phonics program? What does that look like, right? And that's where your superintendent will make those recommendations based on what is occurring. We have advocacy and engagement. You know, advocacy is not a bad word. Really it isn't. And you do it very well, Ginger. You do advocacy very well. The board promotes the vision and engages the community in developing and fulfilling the vision. The board advocates on behalf of Texas public school children. We have over 5.5 million school children out there that are counting on us, right? Making sure that we do right by public education. That's where advocacy plays such a huge part. And we have synergy and teamwork, one of my favorites. The board's duties are distinct, and the board works effectively as a collaborative unit and as a team with the superintendent to lead the district in fulfilling the vision and goals. Working together cohesively doesn't mean you have to agree. I remember when I first ran for the board, my first time around, there was a board member that I knew, and he was supporting the opponent, right? And so somebody who had not voted ever, and I had attended 200 board meetings, union president, teacher in the district, and I'm like, okay, you know, it's all political. And I said, you know, when I win, we're gonna work together to do right by kids. And of course I won. And I kept my word. I'm like, okay, I might not, you didn't support me, we don't like each other, but you know what? We're gonna work together for kids, because that's what it's about. So having that synergy and teamwork is important. And I always tell people, you don't have to agree, you don't even have to like each other. But when you're on the dais, you are open-minded, making best decisions, right? It's not about ego. And sometimes that's really hard to put aside. So when we talk about governance and overseeing management, we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. So governance is what the school board does. We as trustees govern. We are the what. We are the ones doing goal setting. We approve policy. We write policy, even local policy. We are in charge of that one employee, that superintendent. We set the budget and tax rate, and of course, we're accountable to the community. We are ambassadors of the district, and it's so important that we understand that when we're out there. It's very hard to say, oh, is this Vanasataki, not the board member? They're always going to associate you, you're a board member. So you're saying, oh, can you believe that football coach didn't play my student? You know, that's sending the wrong message. So making sure to be aware. And then we look at the management side of it, which is the superintendent. The superintendent is in charge of the how. How does it get done? We set the goals, But how we get there is up to the superintendent and their team. They're the experts. And I always tell my superintendent, and I tell board members everywhere, I'm like, yeah, I was in education and, all this stuff, but I was never a superintendent, right? So you have a lot of people that are educators that are on the board, and they're like, well, I know this, and have you ever been a superintendent? Making those key recommendations, really working in all aspects. So it's important to keep that in mind, making sure you let the experts work on the how piece. Doesn't mean you don't get any input or feedback, right? That's one thing that people always ask, well, so then we shouldn't say anything? No, that is not what I'm saying. We set goals, the overarching goals. Superintendent tells you how they're gonna get there, and it's like, oh, why did you pick 5% instead of 3%? Tell me about the why. It's okay to ask those questions, because the more you're informed and educated, then you're able to help the community also, and staff, right? Understand why are those decisions being made. And your superintendent is in charge of the plans, the systems, procedures, that monitoring system that they put in place, and making sure they make the adjustments needed to make sure you're successful. So they are making the adjustments. But we do have some overlap here. We evaluate goals together, we evaluate policy, we evaluate plans together, and of course, we evaluate the superintendent. The superintendent does a self-report and is reflective. So we work together as a team of 8. That is how you get things done. And I can tell you, I went from a toxic board where we were not working cohesively to an honor board. So it matters. Working cohesively matters. And that's when we saw an increase in student achievement, right? When we started working cohesively together. Now, I do want to mention that there is a difference between board policy and administrative regulations. Often we have board members, myself included, who kind of goes down the wrong lane, right? So it's always important to just make that distinction and understand. The board policy defines governing principles, what the board intends or requires. They're the what, like we saw. And then we have administrative regulations, which is the process or plan of implementing that district policy, and they are the how. They are the how to get there. And making sure that we know that distinction, because sometimes it's a blurry line. One thing that I like to tell my board officers is, while legally you can do it, is it the right thing for your team? Is it going to help the dynamics of the team if you do it? Yeah, legally you can. Is it going to be helpful? Is it going to hinder your team? So that's another aspect to consider when, because I hear board members all the time, well, I can do it. Legally I can do it. Yeah, but is it worth the payoff? Or is it actually going to hurt your team more? So it's something to always consider and to think about. So I gave you these, I was a 4th grade teacher, pre-K, 1st grade, that's why we have our little paddles here. So I have G for governance and M for management. So we're going to read a scenario, and you're going to tell me if it is G for governance, your role, or if it's management, your superintendent's role. Okay, who would like to read the first one for me?
No.
Who is picking me? The board is discussing the organization's future growth. Some members begin to talk about specific changes to staff responsibilities and how to improve individual performance.
So what do you think? Is it governance or management?
Wait,
Governance or management? Everybody says management? Let's see. Yes, and why? What is the key word in here?
The how.
Spec-
Oh,
Okay,
Changes to staff.
Individual performance.
Specific
Yes,
changes to
specific
staff.
changes,
Staff
individual
That goes
performance.
into the
Staff
how.
responsibility.
That's right.
The what was okay about looking at the future growth, but then
Yes.
you got into it.
Then you got into the weeds,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So we don't want to do that. And it's easy. It is so easy, like, we're teetering all the time. And that's why it's so important to take a moment, and I have to tell myself this too. Okay, so is that really your job? So I have those conversations even now after 9 years. Okay, scenario 2, who would like to read that one?
Ginger.
The board is reviewing the annual budget. One board member suggests micromanaging specific line items such as office supplies or staff travel expenses.
What do you think? Governance or management? What do you think, Mr. Victor?
It's tricky.
It's tricky. Why is it tricky, Ginger?
Because they're talking about a specific line item, not trying to adjust it one way or the other, so I'm like right here in the middle.
So that's what happens, right? Like, we are in charge of that annual budget, but when you start nickeling and diming and going
Well, the
into
word-
office supplies,
Micromanaging is his way.
red flag, right?
That's really above my pay grade.
Judy Burns and her line items, I don't know about travel.
That's right, Dale.
So that is a key word, micromanaging, but you will often see board members that will say, I want to know the campus budget up to that line item.
Are you talking about
That's,
South
and again, legally, you can request that information. What are you gonna do with it?
Should you?
You know, but should you,
Right.
right? So that's an important piece. Let's see if y'all are right. I don't know.
Ah,
Management, yay, everybody got it right. Okay, scenario 3.
I have a glare, I'm not reading. There's a big old glare.
The board reviews and approves the overall budget, ensuring it aligns with the strategic goals and, could it help me with that word?
Fiduciary.
There you go, responsibilities.
Okay, what do you think? The board reviews and approves the overall budget. Ooh, was that an easy peasy one? Yes, that is governance. Because you're not going to each line item.
It's a weird word.
Yes.
Fiduciary.
Oh, yeah, it rolls off my tongue wrong too, all the time, Amelia.
fiduciary.
Okay, scenario 4. Who's up?
Roland.
Roland?
Some board members feel that certain staff members are not performing well and want to intervene directly to address performance issues.
Ooh, has that ever happened? I hear that a lot in smaller districts especially. Governance
You
or
want to nitpick?
management?
You want to nitpick?
You want to nitpick, hey, that coach isn't performing. That is management.
That's your business.
And even in a small community, it is still management.
That's what we pay him for.
So,
Yes.
And I agree, management, but you can get feedback.
Yes.
To the,
Mhm.
yeah. for sure.
But can you intervene directly?
No, should.
Can you talk to them about their performance?
Nope.
Well, you're the nurse on the campus, and I think you do a terrible job, and this is what I need you to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Your kid came home with a big welt on his arm.
Yes. So
Just
we
sticking them
cannot
on.
intervene directly. We can have those conversations, those crucial conversations, and say, hey, Superintendent Toscano, I'm hearing a lot
Right.
of things out there about this nurse, blah, 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 blah. And share that, but not go directly and say, hey.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised how many people do that. Okay, so that was just a quick little roles and responsibilities. Now, let's go to board operating procedures. You had some homework. If you had anything you want, I know you just reviewed it last year, August 29th. So that's great that you did an overview. You should be reviewing it annually. So let's talk a little bit about that. So local board operating procedures are designed to provide clarity and guidance regarding your board's expectations. Oftentimes, I will hear boards that really get into it and they want to list everything in the world. That's why you have local policy. That's why you have legal policy. You don't have to put everything in the world in your board operating procedures. This is how you govern this team, right? You can reference policy, which is fine, but you don't need to write it all over again. So it should be providing clarity. I remember, going back to clarity, I remember when I first got on the board and we had our team building meeting and the board president said, Esperanza, you are not following the rules here. And I said, what are you talking about? You know, I'm reading our board operating procedures, I'm following. Well, it's unwritten and unspoken and you're not following it.
Ooh.
And I'm like, okay, well, that's not possible. If it's unwritten and unspoken, and it's not in board operating procedures, I'm not doing it. So you need to memorialize what really is your procedure, and if it's not, take it out. That's why it's important to review this as you get new board members on and so on. Memorialize what is really happening. And for board operating procedures, we use some of these items that we include. We have reference to local and legal policy. We use our Texas Education Code. We use our Code of Ethics. We use our, oftentimes boards will include their vision, mission, and beliefs in their board operating procedures, just once again to emphasize that. And of course, we use our framework for school board development that I just gave you right there, that talks about some of these items. So how often do you review your board operating procedures? I know you did it August 29th. Do you always do it annually? Or was that the first time revamping them?
I think it's been a minute. Has it been a
It's the
minute?
first time they've been revamped in quite a while. And this board now has it as a standing agenda item during the month of August annually to review the board operating procedures. And
Nice.
that's a new practice,
Okay.
or at least in recent, I don't know of a time prior to 10 years.
Sure. I have boards that have not reviewed them in 30 years. 30 years, and the things that are in there are like, my goodness, are you even doing this? Well, no. Well, it's important to review them and discuss, right? And there's some boards that don't even have any. So it's nice that you do have them, you revamped them. We did an overhaul of ours probably about 7 years ago when we got our new superintendent. We did a huge overhaul because it used to be 4 pages, and now it's like about 15 pages. But it's important to review them. Okay, so we're going to look at your board operating procedures here in just a moment, keeping in mind legal policy is everything. So, and the reason I say that is because people want to put stuff in board operating procedures, and it's like, sorry, you can't do that. Legal comes first. So legal policy is first, and then local policy. So if you have it in local policy, for example, I see this a lot, public forum is a thing that comes up a lot. We have legal policy on it, then, you know, you can customize it in local policy, but then some boards want to change it completely in board operating procedures, and it's like, can't do that. You have to, at minimum, do the legal portion, right? And then your local, if you do have something in local policy. Then it is board operating procedures, and then finally it's Robert's Rules of Order. So that is what you look at. Oops. Okay, now I'm going to change over to my board operating procedures over here. And we will go section by section and stop when you have questions. If there's something that, that you said, hey, we need to look at that. Did anybody have something that they wanted to jump to in their table of contents? Is there any section that needed to be revised or updated? I did find a few errors that I highlighted so you can revise them. And then I also highlighted some suggestions to have conversation around. But did anybody else have anything that they wanted to look at?
I think just the reviewing of the closed sessions.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good, it's good.
Let's go do that. I'm super slow with this because I like to use a mouse. Let me see. What page is it
That was
on?
the same one I was.
14.
That was the-
Page 14.
yeah.
What's, yeah, it's 14 on our, it's the, like the third to the last.
Okay, so we're gonna go there first. Okay,
It's number 10.
Mhm.
Page 14.
page 14. Okay, closed sessions.
Mhm.
Okay, what did you want to say about this, Ginger?
So we might be thinking the same
Okay,
things.
but Ginger said it, and I was thinking, that was the thing I was looking at. I think sometimes when we have a good understanding, a fairly good understanding of when we go into closed session and we only speak to certain things or whatever. But I think sometimes, and it just kind of depends on what it is that we're discussing, that we have to have, we share a lot on that topic. And then when we're ready to, when we're finished the discussion, whether we've had legal input or whether legal is present or whatever, when we finish and that we're ready to close and go out. I think just sometimes just the language and the expectation of when we're leaving that and then what that says when we come back out. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying is the clarity, I think, could, if that could flow through our discussion to end up going into what we're going to say, what is going to be said when we go back into open. Because we're not conducting any business in the closed session. That we're coming out of the closed session to
Sure.
share in the open session what was decided or whatever. And
So-
yeah, okay.
Being real careful with that, right, what comes out of closed session. So usually boards will come up, like if you're doing, for example, I'm gonna give you an example of, we had a lawsuit. The board had a lawsuit in closed session, talked about it. They formulated a statement, so when they go take action on the lawsuit, the president reads that statement.
Yeah.
So that gives you clarity, because you don't just vote on the lawsuit, yes, no, without saying anything.
Right.
And being very careful, and that's where your lawyer will help you craft, like, what can I legally say out there about this?
Yeah.
Right? When you're doing hiring, when you're hiring folks, and it comes to you, y'all do hiring, right? Y'all do not hire? So most boards and districts do hire. Usually for the summer months, they will waive the right to hire and give that to the superintendent. But usually they hire, so boards will get information on the candidates that they're hiring. And so then in open session, when they go out to vote on it, they can't say, well, we decided not to vote on this person because they're really terrible. They can't say any of that, but you want to offer some clarity, right? And you're very limited in those cases with personnel. For example, I'll give you a perfect example. We had, in my board, we had 4 positions that we were voting on. And I said, you know what, I want to break that apart because I'm going to vote no on one of those. And so I could not make a huge statement about it because it was personnel and I couldn't say that person was terrible and I didn't want them for that position. So I just said, I need to vote no on this. That's all I could really say per legal advice. So,
I think if we
those are
could
some examples.
have like scripts like that in our toolbox and put that on like the agenda, I was more worried about the record of closed session proceedings. We don't do that.
Okay, so I love that. I actually made a new form up that has all the required information that you're supposed to do. So I have a template that I use because we, for some reason, back with our former superintendent, we had the administrative assistant in our closed session. not the board secretary, but the administrative assistant. So we got rid of that. Our superintendent's like, I've never done it before anywhere else. And as we talk to more boards and everything, nobody has their administrative assistant there. So it is the board secretary that takes those minutes. So we have a template where you can take those minutes and then you turn them in so they can get certified, right? So those are different options to do, but if you have the board operating procedures and you're not doing it, then you're either gonna commit to doing it or just remove it, right? So what are you thinking about the wording in your board operating procedures that needs to be revised or you wanna have a discussion about in regards to modifying?
Are we gonna do this? If not, then we need to
Do
remove,
what?
take minutes and close.
Yeah, so it's an or, right, the way it's written?
Well, take
It's a
minutes.
certified agenda or,
Well, and let me clarify minutes. So it's not minutes like an open session where you have all those minutes. Emilio made a motion and somebody seconded and they had robust discussion and they amended this. It's not that kind of minutes. The minutes for closed session looks a lot different. You know, you have things like, that are required, the starting time, anybody that was in there, who was present, the closing of it, and the general topic discussed, right? So it's not like all these minutes like an open session. It looks a little bit different what's required. Now, you can do an audio recording if you choose to do that instead of taking like certified minutes that
Is
are
this
required.
legal to
You-
take minutes, either recorded or?
You either have to have a certified minutes or you can do a recording as an option.
So
now the
then we need to leave
minutes
it.
are as you just described though. They're
Right,
not the
time
minutes.
started.
Not the minutes from
Right,
open
It's
time
when
session.
it
started, who's
started,
present.
when it ended, who was
Yes.
present, what the general topic was,
Yes.
which is exactly what's in our template.
Yeah.
So we do that.
We do
I have
exactly
nice
that.
secretaries, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know if we did that or
but
not.
because it says the word minutes here,
Yes.
which is why it's good that you're discussing it, and we're discussing it, because we would infer it's exactly like the minutes Camry does for the entire board meeting.
Yes.
And we don't do that in
No.
closed session, but
Right,
that's not,
because it's
what-
closed session. I
and
was
that's
just
not
wondering
what
if we had
this definition of minutes is describing. It's actually what's in our template.
that. Right,
So we are actually doing that to the
okay, I
letter.
didn't know.
And you can even put on here, on the minute section, you can actually reference legal policy that will tell you exactly what's required, so then everybody knows this is all that's legally required, you know, to
And is
have
that on
those
the
things.
template, it does reference the policy?
The template, I'm pretty sure was over-reviewed by the legal team before I came in, because it has all the
That code.
context
It
as
does have
well,
the
policy.
and
So, yeah,
everything.
but, so good question. So now you have clarification on what that is.
That
So
was a great clarification for us.
what other closed session questions you had? You talked about clarity.
Yeah.
So that is something that, again, you don't have to put everything in your board operating procedures, just what you want to memorialize, or you can say, this is the expectation. When there is something that we're gonna vote on from closed session, and it is something we can discuss, then we can make a statement, the board president can make a statement, so you can formulate a statement to share out. When we had a lawsuit against a pedophile, you know, we formulated with our alleged pedophile. We got with our attorney and came up with a statement, taking all the information that we wanted and what we could legally say, and then had our board president read
Yeah.
it, right? So those are the only times that you're really gonna.
And that's
do
why I
something.
said, it kind of depends on what you're talking about.
Yes, exactly.
If that, a legal thing like that, we've got legal, we
Yes.
have a legal statement that we, but sometimes you may be, you're doing something in closed session, there's a reason for doing it in
Yes.
closed session, you know what? But, just, sometimes thinking through the statement, just drafting a general statement that conveys clarity. That
Yes.
have, you know, that's what I'm trying.
Like real estate and land sale,
Mhm.
right? We just had that on our agenda where we're gonna purchase, we had closed session, talked to our broker and everything, they gave us prices and all this stuff. Well, we can't say those prices out in open session, right? That is something that's protected. So we could come up with a statement saying, we are, as the board president can say, purchasing land is much needed. I'm glad that we're getting the opportunity to purchase land to help with our new high school. Something like that, right? Because you can't say those details, but when you can say, because it is weird, it's kind of like, oh, what did they talk about? And there's no transparency, so people have those questions. So very limited on things you can say, but when you can come up with a broad statement about it.
So to that, we'll normally consult our attorney for if in the event the board chooses one path versus the other, what would that motion language look like? However, what I'm hearing you say is sometimes that feels disconnected to the folks that are being affected by that decision, and you want to convey that there was due diligence and consideration in appropriately a statement that maybe is stated by the board president. So I say all that to say we could also then make it a standard practice, doesn't necessarily be codified here, but that when we're going into closed session, that we prepare some possible statements depending on the direction you guys go along. So if they choose this direction, here's the motion, and here's an appropriate general statement to anchor to.
If it warrants
choose to
it.
go this way,
Yes.
So then that way you have,
Right.
you know.
And anybody, whether it's the president that is, or another person that can say the same thing. I mean, because you are saying, what's said on that is speaking for this entire group, that kind of thing.
I know we talked about putting something in here, not policy, because we don't want it to be permanent, but putting in our board operating procedures about filling a vacancy. And I know that's kind of.
A board vacancy?
Yeah. Our processes for doing that. filling
Does
a
your
vacancy.
local
Would that-
policy not cover that?
It is, but is that something that we should put in here as far as our process, vague, this is how we do it? Kind of
So it
thing?
depends on how detailed your local policy is.
Mhm.
If your local policy has that detail already, you can just reference it. Unless you want to talk a little bit more about steps, that's where you would put it in board operating procedures.
Okay.
But I would look at legal and local to see how detailed it is.
But it's not anything that's needed.
You
because we don't-
can put it, if you choose to put steps to it
Mhm.
and outline it more on there, because then you're not tied to that
Right.
forever, like you are with legal and local.
Mhm.
I mean, you can always change local. I would put it in local policy
I think it is.
over,
It is in there, yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't need to touch on it here.
it's the will of
Because
the board.
preferably it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Okay.
Okay, so closed session, anything else for closed session? Okay, how about anything else? Oopsie, sorry.
Well, I do have a question, and when you said, are you all hiring? Okay, let's talk about how that looks in terms of governance versus, and what kind of hiring are you talking about? Expound on that.
So most districts have the board members have the authority to hire from let's say, director to assistant principal. They don't have the authority to hire. In smaller school districts, they do. They hire everybody, the teachers, everybody.
Okay.
But in your medium to large districts, the board will just have hiring authority over director positions, or head football coach is really big in a lot of districts. So that comes to the board as a recommendation, and they have the authority to hire on that. So that is in policy, you can put it in there, and also in policy, it'll tell you, you can waive your right to that authority and give it to your superintendent as well. So those are some options.
And I was, because we don't do that. And when we've done something that needed to be, well, how can I put this? We have put that information in as a motion or whatever to allow the superintendent to act on blah, 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 for certain things like that. And that's not necessarily hiring. It's just, there's some things that, that we have that we're able to delegate in that way. But the hiring, I was wondering about that, because that's not what we do. But I can understand if you've got a really small school district or whatever the thing is. My thinking was, and probably I'm taking some of this from the hospital, if you don't hire, if you don't hire that person, you can't fire that person. That was, that was kind of a general kind of a thing, because I'd have doctors say, well, I'm gonna fire you, whatever. And that's just, sometimes
So in
semantics.
So in districts, you'll have small districts that do all the hiring, but then you also have large districts that would say, we need to have those high profile positions, we need to validate that. We need to do the hiring of that. And that's why some larger school districts have that. Like in our school district, we hire from head football coach, coordinator, whatever, athletic coordinator, all the way down to AP. So all of that comes to us as a board, and a lot of boards do this where that information, you'll get information like who was on the interview committee, who was, here's the resume, we get that information. How much if it's an internal candidate, how much are they getting paid, and what is their pay increase? Just a template that has that information on it. And again, it's larger, for larger districts, you're about what, 10,000? 8,000?
Almost 12.
12? Okay.
Yeah, so
You're a good size.
could you do like a hybrid of that, per se, because like right now, the superintendent does all the hiring and the dismissals. Is there like a chance for a hybrid to where it's just visible to the board, not so much that we?
That is the will of the board,
Gotcha.
right? As a team of 8, you need to decide what is the best fit for you all, what works for your district, is what might work for a district that's large or small, might not work for your district. So that's a conversation to have, right? Like, hey, do we want to see that? Maybe we don't need to do the hiring, but we want to know, that information. Legally, you can request that information. Legally, you can get that information. So you just have to choose, you just have to choose what is best for your board,
Yeah.
right? As a team of 8 or a team of 5 or 6.
Okay.
Yeah. So. Okay, what other sections, and if you want to discuss it now, that's fine. But I just wanted to see what other sections you had. Any other sections that stood out to you? So the things,
I'll make a comment about that topic. I think it's fantastic to take it a step further from where we're at and provide, particularly for whichever levels of hires the board would want to know more information about. Some of which is what you indicated, years of experience, background, certification, pay relative to others in the pay grade, whatever other information the board would want. The one thing that we would want to consider, the board might want to consider, is we have actually been able to hire some highly sought after administrators because the competition was waiting on board approval at the next regular meeting, and we got out in front of them by 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and they needed to make a decision. And so sometimes speed or agility there is to our advantage at a time when talent is very difficult
I agree.
to obtain. So I think to your point about a hybrid, I think there's some opportunity there.
Yeah.
But there's also opportunity to say, hey, we want to, ultimately, you go through the process, but you bring those recommendations to us for us to approve.
Yeah.
We can do that too. Just know that it will cause, potentially, depending on when in the month it is, the need for either a special called meeting to expedite that decision opportunity, or it could be 3 or 4 weeks before the board
If
meets
we're gonna do
again.
that, I say just the information to us,
Yeah.
and you ultimately make the goal, but, the information is always nice, because we get the questions sometimes, so, just presenting it to us in that way, but you ultimately.
But
still make the
identifying
decision.
that there is, making sure that we're cognizant that there's a need sometimes to move quickly and not lose out on a candidate. if
Well-
getting us information is going to hold that up.
Getting y'all information won't. We
You know what I
can
mean?
put
Like,
together.
we wouldn't wanna
Like, it
lose-
would be really important for the board to know the formal process we utilize
Sure.
for hiring, for screening, recruiting, interviewing, reaching a point of finalists, final interviews, and ultimate selection. Like, we have a formal process for that it would be really important for you guys to completely understand. And then within every one of these critical hires, knowing for each of those steps who was involved.
Yeah.
I think the beauty of that is the transparency part,
Mhm.
right? That we know, right? I know, because I'm here, but the general public, right? And when we get the questions, not that I'm inundated with questions and stuff, but then you can at least talk away the perception of maybe bias, right? Or maybe favoritism, you see what I mean? So that's kind of why I'm saying, I'm not saying that we need to change or reinvent the wheel, what's
Yeah.
working here, but I think just the information that
Well,
we gather
In the
from.
future, if this is something that we were gonna do, I was just gonna speak from experience and say that you may wanna have some kind of, I don't know how you would do it, but I've been on a part of a board where that was abused. And a person had a personal agenda against a hire. And so, I mean, your board members need to know, you can't abuse this,
Well, we have to also
the way it's
be,
written, you know what I mean?
at
What we
least
do, our policy,
historically
our procedure cannot be
here,
abused.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
the more information you have, particularly around personnel, the more liability and risk
Yeah.
you have for
Yes.
inadvertently
Yeah.
conveying confidential information.
Right.
Because you,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you don't have access to that information, it doesn't mean that you can't know that information, it just means that in a tongue-in-cheek conversation, you might say, well, that guy wasn't, you know, we hear he had some issues with relationships in his previous job, and so we didn't think he was a good fit. Like, you can't say that. I can't say that. You know, you run the risk of checking references that aren't on their submitted references, and they have a recourse
Probably is.
as a candidate that didn't get
One question
selected.
is, where'd that baseball coach come from?
It's
Now
probably a
that
slippery
you can
slope.
convey.
That's what I'm saying, like,
Came from
I don't know.
Rockport Fulton,
You have to have trust and you have to understand the process. It works well for some boards, some other boards didn't work so well. So it depends on you all, but what I'm hearing is that easy to provide information,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
you know,
I agree.
but knowing, that football coach, you should see his resume, and divulge that information. So it's like, silence, you have the information, because yes, you can, but you cannot share any of those details.
so it would be, what we're talking about here would be an advancement in our position. In addition to the monthly personnel report was kind of there, preceded me. But it's there to say, hey, here's all the activity this month. If you see any positions on there you want more detailed information about, let me know. And right, so if you see, a curriculum, a math specialist is on there, hey, tell us more about where that person came from, their background, why y'all selected that person, et cetera. So that's already there.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
I can be more proactive in,
And you can be more specific with just high profile.
So when you
Right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because like a
that's
math
what I'm saying.
specialist is not gonna be a high profile position, for example.
So you're saying like AP and higher?
Like,
Maybe
depending
some
on what
detail.
you all want, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like, he can say, you know what, hey, this is gonna be big in the news, or this is gonna be big talk in the district, so I'm gonna tell you
Yeah.
who the new football coach for the high school is.
so like currently, we do the big announcements for principals, directors, do we do assistant principal
that
also?
in
The
Yes.
formal announcement, assistant principal, so assistant principals
No.
on up, we do the public announcement, so that might be a starting point for, just get us a little more detailed background information just for our,
Like I said, we're not gonna be here forever. I just don't want for later on down the road, and it could be depending on the board member, and that may be something that future board members would have to explain to new board members. But let's just say I see his resume, but Roland still feels that from what you know about him, he's an amazing, or she, or whoever is an amazing candidate. It's not for me to come back and go, well, yeah, I know Roland, but I want you to explain to me why on here I see this, and I mean, I'm just, you know, we're not gonna get into that kind of contest.
Well, well, what about
Because-
Joe? He's my neighbor's, friend, and he coaches
I don't
over
want
at
that to
X,
happen.
Y, and Z, and I heard he was so
Well,
awesome. Why didn't Joe
it's that,
consider him?
it could happen right now anyway.
Right.
He's accepting
Yeah.
questions and things like that, so it depends on the board member, but we're not taking hiring away from him. We're just
No, no,
saying
no, no,
not-
no, no. I just want to be prepared as a board to lay down the guidelines and to practice them and to continue paying close attention. And as we bring on new members,
Yeah.
they know that this is not an arguing match or an opportunity for us to grill him or
Yeah.
cause him to do more work.
It's not even in here now.
So maybe you all can informally try it,
Yeah.
and then in a year, see if you need to put it in, or you can put board operating procedures on an agenda at any time. So
Yeah.
if
I
you
mean, I'm totally
feel
grateful
after
that-
6 months, like,
Yeah.
oh,
You know,
let's
like-
memorialize that in our board operating procedures, you can always do that. But maybe informally try it
Yeah.
and see how that works.
Yeah.
I think Emilio's right, it's transparent. It gives the board an opportunity to,
I come up with
Yeah, and I think
questions,
we're-
like, just on the back of my, like, I got asked, where'd the baseball coach come from?
yeah, no, I think that's
I
great.
And
think
then I'm
too,
like,
because we're in an information
Era,
desiring
era.
area, because it's different than what we grew up with.
Yeah.
And we're,
Yeah.
we have a great day going today. Like you said, we're not all going to be
That's what I
here
call it.
That's
forever.
right, that's
And
right.
So building that and getting ready for that, I think
Right.
is important. So how we do it, we have to be real careful,
Yeah.
because to that
I
point,
do
we
have
don't
another
want to give
question.
somebody
about B.
all this power that they can abuse,
Right.
but then we still have to
On
find
closed
that
session.
line
Right.
of making
The-
sure.
and-
But, and you know, but something I learned, and then I'm just gonna be
Age.
quiet, but in all the years, back when I first got on, you know, I had similar situations. And something that Mr. Patterson explained to me as I was a very young board member growing was how you understand that you know, that's what you're here for. We put our trust in you and your professionalism, knowing what to look for. And even at the end of the day, there were times where Mr. Patterson, when something would happen with an employee, and he would be like, oh, he would feel the worst about it. And they had vetted this person up and down from A to B, in and out the door, but we still have to trust that they know exactly what they're doing and they do it well.
100%.
You know.
Quote from Ronald Reagan, trust but verify.
Verify.
All the
Right.
time.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
I agree.
I
I agree.
wholly,
And I appreciate his
solely,
openness
wholly
for that.
Trust,
Yeah,
right, but,
Agreed.
but
Yeah.
not everybody has the same
true, yeah.
knowledge.
I think it's a great practice to
So-
try to do.
So the board's good with that, informally trying out
Yeah.
some of those,
I think we do.
and then you can come back and, codify it if you need to, but just for now, informally.
I agree.
Try that practice of,
Absolutely.
your high profile positions
Mhm.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm in my mind, just to make sure I'm clear, the announcement that we submit publicly has all the information. It only has like where they came from, their assignment, all the things, years of experience. So definitely that before the announcement goes public, but in addition to that, maybe about the process. Like a little bit more about the process, right? Like who was, what was the committee process? What was kind of how many candidates do we have?
Yeah, yeah.
Who all were finalists? Do you want that kind of information as well?
Make that be, yeah, be good.
So just think about it and give me, I'll kind of put a template together or a checklist of things.
And let
that
me
would
know
be
if you want me to
included.
send you a template, because I do have a template for that.
That'd be useful.
And then
They
there's-
can
And then you
look at
can
it.
build off of that.
And then if there's things in there that we go, yeah, we don't want to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just, let's,
But a
why
starting
don't you
point.
why don't you send the board the template and then they can kind of,
Yeah,
does this include everything we think?
yeah.
Or is there anything else? And then I kind of anchor to that and then build
That,
from
and
there.
that needs to be a board, an agenda item to change board operating procedures, but not to,
No, it does not have to be an
right,
agenda.
okay, so we'll
It's
just.
administrative by nature, you giving them that information is administrative. So,
I did have a question about this next one.
okay, what did you have?
So did this have to be in there? I can't remember.
Which
if
one?
So the inquiries concerning scheduling,
Inquiries concerning
what does that
schedule.
really mean, if I don't sound like a ding dong?
I wasn't here, so I don't know what it
Right,
means.
I don't know what it means.
Do y'all remember what it means? Page 8. Oh, that means, the way I read it, correct me if I'm wrong, if they say, are you available for a meeting on this date, and you don't meet the deadline to say yes or no, they're gonna take it as a no. Is that what it means?
Well, when I read it again today, I interpreted it as if, you know, Camry sends it, hey, you know, here's a couple of dates for a special meeting, will the 24th work? And everybody responds except,
Don't call me out, I knew you were gonna say Ginger.
well, yes. You always respond. But Ginger doesn't, and she said, hey, let me know by Thursday so we can finalize the date. And everybody responds except Ginger, then she'll just, this says, then we'll just
That's a
take it
no.
as Ginger said, no, that doesn't work for me.
Okay,
Not that this happens often.
no, I know, I was like, I don't know what's gonna.
Is that how you're interpreting it? Yeah.
Is it something we have to keep in here?
You don't have to.
We
You don't.
I mean, is that kind of confusing to people, or should we keep it in?
I've never seen it before in anybody else's board operating procedures, and I've done probably 100.
Yeah, and this one was not one of ours previously. This was in the exemplar that we anchored
From
to.
TEA?
Yeah, this was in the
Yeah.
exemplar, so a lot of it is amended to adapt to what you guys preferred. That particular one didn't get touched, it was just there, so we didn't remove it or amend it. So it's
So whatever the will of the board is.
whatever the will of the board. Yeah, it hadn't really been an issue for this board. That-
I mean, is it something that we should take out or leave it?
If I didn't answer, it means I no.
Yeah.
I said no. A non-response says I didn't, I'm not telling you. It didn't work for me.
Football coach here a long time, know him. His
So
son
do y'all
Randy
want
was
to
on
leave it
that.
in? Do y'all want to delete it?
I think,
On behalf of the district.
I mean, I think if it's confusing and it's just amongst us, what's the point?
Okay, so I have,
So let's take it out.
take it out? Okay, I'm gonna highlight it in a different color to delete this.
That would be B, inquiries concerning scheduling, that
Mhm.
paragraph?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay, what other
No,
questions did
this
you
is yours.
have?
No, I
No.
wrote it down.
Okay.
I'll send it
So
to
kind
you.
Send to me, because
Yes.
I think when we originally did this, I think the lawyers or somebody was in there with y'all.
Yeah.
and Changed all the wording and then just sent it to me and I formatted it. for you,
Yes.
so.
Okay, anything else?
I think there's some new, but as we move along, we might be
Okay, so I highlighted some yellow things, just
Uh-huh.
wanted to
to look at.
to know, like, the board packet, do you all get a physical board packet? Is that still accurate? A board
No.
packet is prepared and delivered to the
No, we
board.
don't.
So it needs to be wordsmith.
Delivered electronically.
We do
It is.
electronic.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can maybe specify
Yes.
an electronic board packet is prepared and delivered to the board at least 7 weeks prior, because that is accurate.
Yeah.
Or just
Okay.
the board packet is prepared and delivered electronically to the
Yes.
board, just that.
Because a lot of people still had that in there from the old
Yeah.
days, an electronic.
Electronic.
Oh, God, you should see those.
Okay.
I know, the cop.
Okay, the other thing
To me.
that I wanted to ask you about was number 5, because it's talking about rescinding and
Rescind or modified action previously taken by the
at
board.
least, okay, in order to rescind that you need, and this, it's fine if you have, that is the will of the board for board operating procedures. I just wanted to tell you, I mean, like legally you don't need to, but just wanted to know, it said like 1 has to be on the voted in favor of this action, so legally that's not required. So I just wanted to ask you if y'all wanted that in there or not.
No, and however it's.
Because rescind,
legal,
anybody
Can
can
do it.
put it on an agenda to rescind. It is when you reconsider, that is when you have a person from the side that won, they're the ones who would have to put it up for reconsideration, which is in the same meeting, right?
Yeah.
And you all know that because I taught you all that.
Mhm.
So, do you want to
I
delete
think
that
it should
one of
be-
them has to be in favor?
Yes, ma'am.
I think so.
And then there's just like little misspelled words that I
Yeah.
highlighted.
Added to
Yes.
on the first page, with, hold, you see that?
On which one?
Just the city, the hold needs to be,
What page?
So this one.
okay, it says,
Don't read it over.
No, at no time will board members or the superintendent attempt to it's just a typo, withhold.
Oh, yes. So I just found typos
Right,
in it.
and there is another,
So I will go through, I already highlighted most of the typos.
okay, so you did, okay.
yeah.
That's all. All right.
The other things that I was gonna bring up, your public forum or your citizens communication, the words are tricky, right? A lot of the times it should be may instead of shall. And those are the ones that I highlighted. For example, these board members are not to sign up as citizens. You know, maybe it happens once in a blue moon. If you want to leave it in there, that's fine, you can.
To speak?
Yes, board members are not to sign up as citizens to be heard. Board members have the legal right to do that, so that's where it kind of gets tricky, because legally, remember, legal trumps everything, right? So legally, anybody can talk. So just want to bring it to your attention, and, you know, you can leave it in there if you choose, just know legally you will
I think it should
lose
be just
in a lawsuit.
how
Probably. I'm not a lawyer, but that's what I've heard.
it said legally, leave it, put it in the legal terms. So just adjust it where.
I would just delete it, because that's the expectation, that nobody's going to get up and speak at public forum. And when you have a board that's working cohesively, that's not gonna happen. You only see that happen, I've only seen it.
As a citizen to be heard where though? At our only,
Yes,
or any
at
other
the public
meeting?
forum.
Why don't you sign up for public
Yes,
comments?
like Emilio gets up and says, I'm gonna talk about the bond, you know, that doesn't happen.
So we're taking out 4.
Yeah.
So it's saying, this is currently saying that the board is telling one another, you don't sign
I
up for
see.
public comments. She's saying the law allows
I see.
for you as a
Anybody.
citizen.
But I'm not a lawyer,
Yeah.
but that is
Yeah, I
the
see
advice
what
we've
you're
been
saying.
given.
She's saying if I
Yeah.
wanted to sign up for a public comment
Yeah.
and the
He
board
takes
says
off
I
his,
can't, I
takes off
lose
his
a
board,
lawsuit.
I got you.
board hat and it gets down.
I mean, it's
on
not best practice, and I would not
Right. What's
encourage
legal?
anybody to do it.
Yeah.
And you preface that by saying,
I didn't know if it was
Earlier.
board or somewhere.
That's
That's
kind
what's legal doesn't mean it's right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
kind of only-
Kind of
But
bending
But
the
you
if
rules.
could-
I was
Somebody
denied, we were
can-
denied.
It doesn't break it, but it's kind of
If I was
bending
mad,
the
I
line.
do that.
I could do that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Legally,
Right.
that would
And-
be very bad.
You could always have one member that wanted to.
And because this, even if it's written here, it wouldn't stop somebody from doing it if they
The
wanted to.
board
Right,
encourages
The
trustees
law,
to.
legally can, but
right.
it's kind of unethical.
Okay, so this one right here, the citizens, where you say delegation of more than 5 persons shall appoint 1 person to present the views, that is not legal either. You can say may, because you can ask them and they can say, no, I don't want to appoint somebody. And that is every right. If there's 10 people signed up to talk about the same thing, legally they can. And that just came out like, I don't know.
That's recent.
Yeah,
that's
like
recent.
3 years ago or so that it came out where you could no
Yeah, and
longer
May
do
would be
that.
more appropriate. Now, you can say, because there's 10 of you speaking on the same topic,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
you're
yeah.
not gonna get 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right, you're putting it on here to
1 minute
encourage
each.
them to do it,
Yeah.
and we can't
Yeah.
stop them.
So I would just say change it to may,
Yeah,
because you can just
yeah,
ask.
you can ask.
So I'm gonna change that,
Because here we go again, the legal side trumps.
yes.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of those that I found that are shall, and shall is more concrete and firm, that should be may, because legally, and again, that's from doing 100 board operating procedures, not that I'm a lawyer, so don't sue me.
Well, and, this exemplar might have preceded some of
Yes.
the changes.
And then
Get it
the
updated.
only other question I had right here was, I didn't know if you all restricted yourselves on this. I have not. I've only seen this when we have Lone Star governance is implemented at a district level where they only let you talk once. Because right here it says, each member will have the opportunity to discuss an agenda item at least once before the item may be tabled, postponed, or action taken. First of all, we need to take out tabled, because tabled is not correct. Yes, thank you. So I didn't know if you all were limiting because you all do Lone Star governance here.
Well, it's not limited to at least once, right? It's saying that everybody should get at least an opportunity to speak on an item. Does it say they can only have one?
It said, no, it says at least once before the item can be tabled, postponed, or action taken.
Yeah.
So you can talk once and then I can call for action on that item,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I don't know if it's needed. Most people don't need that unless you're following Lone Star governance where you only allow for one time to talk. And they have a set time. They have like 2 minutes to talk. It's modified depending on the district. Some have 2 minutes, some have 1 minute, one time, all that kind of stuff. That's why I was wondering if you were Lone Star governance.
No.
But again, it goes to the expectations of the board. We know that everybody's gonna get the opportunity to speak. You know, that's your expectation. But if you want to leave that in there, you can. I just wanted to
So do you
highlight.
want to reword it or take it out completely?
I would delete it.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I would say, if this board has had a challenge with moving to
Yes.
action so rapidly that everybody didn't get a chance to weigh in, then you might want to codify it in operating procedures. Hey, everybody's gonna get a chance.
Right.
But if it's not a problem right now,
Yeah, then leave
It
it.
should be
take
a-
it out.
It should
if
be
you
a
guys-
given
It's
of
a
the
given.
board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And if it becomes a problem later in
Yeah.
future reviews, you guys might want to amend
Agreed.
something like
Agreed.
that.
And that's kind of the neat thing of revisiting this.
That's right.
and
Yes.
you can-
Because you can have a different board
That's right.
That's right.
in another year, and it's like, yeah, we're really gonna need to put that in there, right?
I like that.
Okay, and this is highlighted because I didn't know what this meant. No individual board member may request the creation of a new Repoli.
Report.
What?
It says Repoli here, so,
Mine says
Uh-huh.
report.
Where?
right here, this yellow that's
Oh.
highlighted,
Mine says report.
What page
mine says
is that?
Repoli.
Mine says, mine says report.
Okay, so it should be report.
Mm.
Okay, that is on page 8. So I don't know what happened to mine.
Highlighted before that. Either the board president.
Information provided to individual board members by either the board okay, you need to be really careful about that, the board president providing information to the rest of the board. Usually, and maybe this is what you mean, usually our board president in districts will type out an email, send it to the administrative assistant for them to share it out. The board president doesn't share it out because you can go, somebody can reply, you can cause a walking quorum issue, so you don't want that. So as long as
So
you
just
all
take
have
that
that handled,
Just take that on and put superintendent. Information provided to individual board members by the superintendent or Cambridge. Take out board president.
This is individual.
Individual board member by either the board president and superintendent. So I think so this is basically saying any information that is provided for one board member should be provided for all board members. I think what you're arguing is how that information is conveyed to all board members. You should be very careful that it's not coming
Yes.
from the board president, because if it's coming from the board president and someone replies, you just had a walking
Yeah.
quorum, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're
Yes.
suggesting? So
Yes.
maybe the wording there, but is the spirit of the item here, work
Meaningful.
is something that you guys
Yeah,
want to make sure is that any information that is
disseminated to.
I think not
disseminated
having,
to one should be disseminated to all.
right, but not by the board president.
Yeah,
Correct,
okay.
So take out board president
correct.
and just by superintendent, or we can even put Cambry's position on there, right? It doesn't have to be.
Yeah,
Or you could,
just put, you can be distributed by superintendent's office,
Yeah.
Yeah,
is usually what I see.
I agree.
initiate it to either superintendent or president. Questions?
And I'll go back to it and fix it, disseminated
Initiated.
by.
And I think as of recent, we've, pretty much verbally decided that, but now that we're going back over written, and once again, like Emilio said, we'll probably tweak things here and there quite often,
Yeah.
And is that allowed, to visit things during the year, or do you have to wait?
Yes, you
Okay.
can, you can do it anytime, it just has to be on the agenda.
I see, okay.
Yeah, we have a workshop. like
So it's a
this
moving,
prior to
a
having
mo- a
this, where
moving,
we
uh,
It's
discuss-
a
Document.
breathing, living
Living
document.
Yeah, okay.
There was one district that I learned about recently that has 30 minutes prior to the meeting, and that they consider it a board workshop. So So it's just 30 minutes, but it's kind of like what you do meeting for meeting, but it's
Mhm.
like a board workshop to where you can go over stuff.
Yeah, so it would just be a published public meeting,
We'd have to post it.
Yes,
yeah. so
our
you-
meeting.
Yeah, I
we
have
put
seen that.
Board workshop at the beginning,
Yeah,
and we get
And
to
you can kind of
discuss.
discuss stuff like this.
Little things like that, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
yeah, you could formalize the meeting before the meeting, it just makes it an open meeting.
Right, but we put board workshop to where we discuss, yeah.
Yeah,
One other question I have for you is about legal counsel. A lot of districts limit legal counsel to, can only be contacted by the board president, or the board president has to give authority for them to contact legal counsel, because here it's like any board member can contact legal counsel, but they need to track the hours and everything. So you want everybody to be able to
No, I don't-
I
communicate
thought
with
it
legal
said the
counsel?
chair before. I thought it said just the chair was able to.
I think we've,
No,
I mean,
it says whenever a board member contacts legal counsel for the district. So I'm inferring that means any board member.
correct.
I swear that used to say. the chair.
well, I can tell you what the board's practice has been, when they as a body
Needed.
have wanted to consult legal counsel, then they've agreed, and then the board president has done that.
And the board
On
doesn't
behalf of
have
the
to
board.
agree either. If the board president needs legal advice for the board, they can
That's-
access that, right?
that's
Because you're not
probably-
always gonna have time.
Yeah,
to-
that's probably a more accurate statement. I mean, I'm not saying I have an opinion one way or the other. I'm just saying
No,
the way I've
but-
seen this
Okay,
board
so
operate over
I'm
the last
gonna-
10 years.
I'm gonna do the wording a little bit different on this one.
That if the president needed some consultation on something, they may reach out.
Yes,
To the-
Or if someone else on the board wanted,
they need to get
We-
would
permission.
let the board president know, hey, really think you should contact
Okay.
legal
I see
counsel
what
and
you're
Yeah,
get us
saying.
because that's
and get
billable
us an
hours
opinion.
if we were called.
As opposed to anyone that wants to, and just quite honestly, we do that at the administrative level too. Not everybody calls, there's a protocol so that it's a,
Yes.
Well, then we
So
should
you
call
already
and say-
have a protocol in place. We're
Pretty
just
much.
trying to match it up, right?
Yeah,
We're
just
just trying
match
to
it up.
align it.
That's what I'm
Yeah, I think
looking for.
matching it up. And I also, I think that it's been a practice that, you're usually more knowledgeable when we need legal, assistance.
well, that's, I mean.
And that it's kind of works in
Well, like
reverse.
if the president wanted to consult legal, sometimes you could call them, but usually the president will say, hey, we need you to call a lawyer and get an opinion on it
Right.
for us.
Or
And I'll do that.
it'll
Can you
work in
imagine
reverse
billable
and you'll
hours if I were
say,
to talk to
we're
them?
gonna have.
Yes, exactly. That's what happens on
A
some
lot of
districts.
times, a lot of times on a subject though, it'll work in reverse and you'll come to us and say, we're gonna need legal counsel on this. They're gonna be in attendance because we're gonna need blah, blah.
Agreed.
So there's a lot of things that we don't know that we need them there for, but you've already arranged for that. So that works in reverse.
That's why I think it should stay at the president.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fine with
One
me.
person.
I probably won't know when we need them.
Well, that's the beauty
But
of
if-
it, we come to you.
Yeah, if I come up with something like.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Legal.
Because they charge for all that, so
Yes.
you wouldn't want
That's
seven
right.
board members
That's right.
calling you.
Exactly.
And then
So
you
it's
would
very
come to the board and
limiting.
say, hey, by the way, I called the attorney.
Yeah.
I called
And this is what they
Jasmine,
said, and
Mark,
she might say, well,
Laura.
hey, I called the attorney too.
Yeah.
And then Vic
So-
says, hey, I need to.
The only other things I had were the shall and may
Maybe
and
needs to be changed.
the misspellings.
Okay.
That's the other stuff that I had.
Okay.
Did anybody have anything else?
Yeah, the Rapoli.
Yeah, totally.
The
I don't know where
roly
that came from. Okay,
Lots of
so
Oh, you want some more stuff?
I will fix that up and then send it your
Okay.
way, okay? And then you all can look at it, maybe I missed something,
All
so
right.
you all look at it again. Okay, well, I know it's raining really hard, and I want to get you out of here. So. we are gonna do-
Is this for the rain?
Oh,
I got no,
sure.
I got no.
Fold it in half,
Is this
please.
for the rain? Oh,
For the
no, it's not
rain.
for the rain.
You want the lines in or out?
Doesn't matter.
But she said she was a third grade teacher, so I wanted to have it.
You know it.
Never.
Okay, so I want you to fold it in half, and I just want you to do this. I want you to reflect on one thing, as you fold it, right? You're gonna write superintendent. You're gonna write president, and you're gonna write myself.
So front is super,
It doesn't matter.
oh,
because I'm gonna type it all out,
Okay.
but I just wanna capture your
You can
thoughts.
abbreviate superintendent.
So one is superintendent, one is president, and one is myself.
How are you gonna fill out the board?
Smart.
This is your exit ticket to get out of here.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh.
Exit ticket.
so it's just getting turned into you.
Superintendent.
Yes.
Like
So
that?
nobody's gonna see it.
If-
I'm gonna gather all that you wrote, type it out, so nobody's gonna know that was gender. Nobody's gonna know that. It doesn't have a name attached, and I don't want your name. I want you to tell me one thing that the superintendent is doing well that should continue. One thing they are doing that can be improved. You're gonna do that for your president as well, and for yourself. So for the superintendent and the president, you can be reflective, right? And say, okay, what is one good thing I'm doing really good as president? One thing that I need to improve upon, right? So team building is not that dreadful, right? It was pretty nice and neat. You already had really good structure to that.
Thank you.
So as we finish this, I need to put my USB to save this document. You want to make sure to get your staff out before it starts raining even more. My phone number, my cell phone is on that card. Feel free to call me anytime. I do remote coaching, so I can answer your questions via Zoom or on the phone. I talk to some of you all lots of times.
I just don't have anything.
Oh, I love it.
No, she didn't.
I do. You know I love to talk. I'm gonna find my USB.
For real. That's very hard for me to be a mean person. You know that. You know that, Ginger. You're the mean one of our family.
What?
So that was neat.
She.
Yeah.
Not Ginger.
No, not me.
My son, if you get out of here, you're gonna distract me.
Don't distract him.
You got the assignment.
Lord.
Trying to think of a word in there.
So my cell phone number is on there. Like I said, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you.
tonight.
I hope you don't live too far.
No, I'm staying here because I do live far.
You're staying here?
In San Antonio, yes.
Oh, I was like, shoot, where do we have that apartment around here? You know, Gary was very smart to buy those places there in New Valley that they have used so much for their staff that has been in and out with those roles there. And they own those places there for people that are with all the situations that
Okay.
they're going through.
So if you all are good, you can give me your index card, and Monique, I'll turn it over to you to close out the
Okay,
meeting.
all right, yes, ma'am. Anybody have anything else before we adjourn? Item number 8, adjournment. Do I have a motion to
So
adjourn?
moved.
And a second?
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Garza, a second by Ms. Friesenhunt. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Everybody be very safe on the way home